December 22nd, 1944. 11:30 in the morning, the Arlon Road, south of Bastogne, Belgium. 4 German soldiers emerge from a tree line and walk toward the American lines, carrying 2 white flags. The senior officer is a major. His overcoat is long. His boots are shiny. His companion, a lieutenant, carries a briefcase. 2 enlisted men flank them. The 4 walk past a bazooka team crouched in a foxhole without being shot. They stop in front of a bar gunner named Leo Palmer. The major explains why they have come. He has a message. The message is formal, typed. 2 pages. One in English, one in German. The German copy, with its diacritical marks, entered by hand, because the typewriter was American. The message states that 1 German artillery corps and 6 heavy anti-aircraft battalions are prepared to annihilate the American forces in and around Bastogne. It appeals to what it calls the well-known American humanity. It asks for surrender. The commander of the encircled American forces receives the message. He reads it. He crumples it into a ball. He throws it in a wastepaper basket. He replies in 1 word. That word has been famous for 80 years. But before it carries that weight, before it lands the way it has landed since, something must be understood about who these men were and what had already passed between them and the Germans before this morning on a snow-covered road in Belgium. The most honest verdict one professional fighting force can render on another is the one spoken under duress or in defeat or in the private admission that something cannot be broken. What the Germans said about the 101st Airborne in after-action reports and post-war memoirs and prisoner interrogations is exactly that kind of verdict. It cost them something to say it. August 19th, 1942. Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. The 101st Airborne Division has existed for 3 days. Its first commander, Major General William C. Lee, reads aloud from General Order No. 5. He tells his men, the 101st Airborne Division has no history, but it has a rendezvous with destiny. The men standing in the Louisiana heat do not know what that means yet. Neither does anyone else. The division does not exist yet as anything except a promise. What takes shape at Claiborne is not ordinary. Airborne soldiers volunteer. They submit to physical screening beyond the standard infantry threshold. They receive jump pay, extra money for choosing the hardest job available, which selects, above all else, for a particular kind of man. Not reckless, not suicidal, but constitutionally unwilling to take an easy path when a harder one is on offer. The division's patch is a black shield with a white eagle, borrowed from the Iron Brigade of the Civil War, fighters who never quit. The men who wear it on their left shoulders will call themselves the Screaming Eagles. Their enemies will come to call them something else. The man who will define the division's most famous moment is not an infantry officer. Anthony McAuliffe is an artilleryman. Born in 1898, Irish stock, square-jawed. Blunt not as performance, but as disposition, economy over decoration in language and everything else. He has never completed a qualifying parachute jump. He volunteers to jump into Normandy with the first wave anyway. That choice is noted in his record. It tells something about him that the Germans will spend months discovering. June 5th, 1944. Evening, England. Roughly 600 C-47s are lined up, carrying the men of the 101st toward France. The sky over the Channel is overcast. The flight into the Carentan Peninsula will run through heavy flak. Pilots are told not to slow down, not to deviate. The drop will be what it will be. Shortly after midnight, the paratroopers begin falling into Normandy. It is scattered, anti-aircraft fire, weather, navigation drift. The regiments come apart in the air and land across a wide swath of the Carentan. But something happens in the darkness that the Germans do not expect. The small groups form up. They navigate without orders. They attack without waiting for the larger picture to clarify. In ones and twos and squads and companies, they begin carrying out their assigned missions. They are supposed to be in disarray. They behave like men who trained for exactly this. Friedrich August Freiherr von der Heydte is a colonel. He commands the German 6th Parachute Regiment, defending the approaches to Carentan. He holds the Knight's Cross. He jumped on Crete. He fought in North Africa. He is one of Germany's finest paratroopers, and when he interrogates captured American pathfinders in the early hours of June 6th, he notices something. The men have shaved their heads into narrow strips of hair running center to crown, mohawks. They have painted their faces, red and white. He writes about it afterward. He notices. It is the first entry in a file that will take 11 months to close. The strategic picture in those first days is stark. Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, the two American landing zones, are separated by the town of Carentan. The beachhead is not yet continuous. If the Allies cannot link through Carentan, the two lodgements remain vulnerable to being split and destroyed separately. The job falls to the 101st. Standing between the paratroopers and the city is von der Heydte's regiment, 2 battalions of Fallschirmjäger, elite troops dug in and determined. The main approach runs along a narrow elevated causeway with flooded fields stretching away on both sides. There is no flanking route. There is no cover. The only way through is forward, down a strip of road where men can be seen and shot from 3 directions at once. On June 11th, Lieutenant Colonel Robert G. Cole of the 3rd Battalion, 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, deploys a smoke screen and leads a bayonet charge down that causeway under fire. Not a planned maneuver. A charge ordered on ground, where no charge should have worked, against positions that had held all morning. German defensive positions are overrun. Carentan falls on June 12th. Von der Heydte's regiment, out of ammunition and unable to be resupplied, abandons the city. Cole will receive the Medal of Honor for the causeway charge. He will be killed in Holland in September 1944 before anyone can present it to him. Now comes the first direct German reckoning. The 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division Götz von Berlichingen has been ordered to Carentan. Its name comes from a medieval German knight, a man of the iron fist who, when an imperial envoy demanded he surrender his besieged castle, replied in language that does not translate gracefully. Something close to, "Go to hell." The division's men call themselves, with sardonic pride, the Kiss My Ass Division. A division that takes its identity from a man who refused to yield a besieged position is about to spend 11 months fighting a division that will do the same. That parallel does not exist yet, but the name is already in the record. The 17th SS was supposed to reach Carentan before it fell. Allied airstrikes wrecked their movement. They arrive after the city is gone. Led by SS Gruppenführer Werner Ostendorf, Eastern Front veteran, multiply decorated, commanding a formation that is part SS, part Romanian conscript, part French equipment, but driven by officers who understand exactly what they are doing. On the morning of June 13th, Ostendorf strikes. 2 SS battalions with armor hit the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment on the American left before dawn. The left flank of the 506th gives way. By noon, the spearheads of the German attack are within 450 meters of Carentan itself. The city is that close to being retaken. The 101st, exhausted from a week of fighting, is bending. Then Combat Command A of the 2nd Armored Division arrives. Shermans pouring into the field southwest of Carentan. The SS assault shatters against them. Ostendorf retreats. What his division was supposed to prevent, the fall of Carentan, had already happened before he arrived. What he attempted to reverse, the recapture of Carentan, ends in retreat. By July, the 17th SS is practically destroyed as a coherent fighting force. Only around 1,500 men will escape the Falaise pocket intact. Ostendorf himself is wounded 15 days after Carentan. He will survive to command another division. He will die of his wounds on April 5, 1945, 3 weeks before the war ends. The first file entry: the Germans tried to take Carentan back. They could not. September 1944. The Netherlands. The 101st drops into Holland as part of Operation Market Garden. The Allied attempt to seize a corridor of bridges northward through Eindhoven, Nijmegen, and Arnhem. The 101st's task is to hold the southern section, 40 miles of single highway, raised on dikes, exposed on both sides, moving through flat Dutch farmland. Hell's highway. The ground is fog and water and mud. The polders stretch out flat on either side of the road. Grey, featureless, no cover, no elevation. The sky is low. The 9th SS Panzer Division, Hohenstaufen, veterans of the Eastern Front and of Arnhem, where they had just destroyed the British 1st Airborne, cuts the highway. The 101st repairs it. The 9th SS cuts it again. The 101st repairs it again. This continues for 2 months, through September and October and into November, grinding and attritional in conditions that reduce warfare to its simplest terms. Hold the road. The 9th SS Panzer and the 101st will meet again, 3 months from now, in different weather. Both sides know each other now. December 16th, 1944. The Ardennes. The German offensive begins before dawn in fog and snow along an 85-mile front. The Americans are caught entirely unprepared. 3 German armies pour through the forest, bypassing strong points, swamping positions, racing west. The plan requires the port of Antwerp. It requires cutting the Allied lines in half, and it requires, above everything else, the seizure of a road junction in eastern Belgium, a small city where 7 roads converge. Bastogne. Maxwell Taylor is in Washington. McAuliffe is in command. The 101st has roughly 12 hours to reach Bastogne before German armor does. It moves through the night of December 18th in open trucks, deuce and a halves, rolling through the dark on roads clogged with retreating American units moving in the opposite direction. The temperature is below freezing. The men are in the uniforms they wore in Holland. No winter gear, no white camouflage. They sit in the backs of trucks with their rifles, and their knees to their chests, and they move toward a city no one has fully explained to them, toward the sound of artillery getting louder. They arrive on the morning of December 19th, barely ahead of the German columns converging from the north and east. The perimeter is established. The fog thickens. Allied aircraft cannot fly. The temperature drops further. Below 0 Fahrenheit at night. 6 to 12 inches of snow on the open ground. Deeper in the drifts along the tree lines. Inside the perimeter, no cold weather clothing. Medical supplies captured in the opening chaos of the offensive. Artillery ammunition rationed to 10 rounds per gun per day. Frostbite begins taking men almost immediately. Food scarce. No prospect of resupply as long as the fog holds. Outside the perimeter, the 1st SS Panzer Division, Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler. The 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend. The 9th SS Panzer Division, Hohenstaufen, the same men from Hell's Highway. 3 SS armored divisions surrounding a frozen city held by paratroopers in summer uniforms. A German soldier writes home, "The snow must turn red with American blood." December 22nd, 1944. The morning. McAuliffe visits the wounded in the field hospital. Then he returns to his command post. At some point, the accounts differ on exactly when, he is in his sleeping bag when someone wakes him with a message. 4 German soldiers have been brought in from the Arlon Road. They have a document. He reads it. 1 German artillery corps and 6 heavy anti-aircraft battalions prepared to annihilate the American forces inside this perimeter. An appeal to American humanity. A demand for surrender. He crumples it. He throws it in the waste paper basket. He says, "Oh, nuts." He is not performing, he is not calculating. He finds the demand genuinely absurd. A moment passes before his staff realizes he needs to respond in writing. He is not sure what to write. "I don't know what to tell them," he says. Lieutenant Colonel Harry Kinnard, his operations officer, speaks quietly. "What you said initially would be hard to beat, sir." McAuliffe doesn't remember what he said. "Sir, you said nuts." The staff applauds. McAuliffe writes it down. "Have it typed up." Colonel Joseph Harper, commanding the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment, takes the single-typed sheet to the blindfolded German officers. Harper stands over 6 feet tall. He looks down at the German major. The major reads the paper. He is confused. This is not a military term he recognizes. He asks what it means. Harper looks at him. In plain English, "Go to hell." On the German side of the perimeter, the verdict was already being written. General Major Heinz Kokott commands the 26th Volks Grenadier Division. The primary investment force around Bastogne, the men doing the grinding daily work of pressing the perimeter. He is not SS, he is a professional army officer, and what he sets down in his post-war account becomes one of the most detailed German records of the siege. On December 22nd, he receives word of the American reply. He writes about it. The commander of the besieged forces, he records, had declined to surrender with remarkable brevity. This response, he writes, was fully in accord with the stubborn tenacity displayed by the defending forces. Remarkable brevity. He was not surprised. He had watched his men fight the 101st for days. He knew what kind of soldiers were inside that perimeter. He expected them to refuse. He just did not expect them to refuse in 4 letters. And outside the perimeter, though the commanders pressing the attack do not know it, the broader German offensive is already dying. The great panzer columns racing for Antwerp are running out of fuel. Wehrmacht operations staff will later record urgent requests to release fuel reserves. Requests granted only slowly, in the smallest possible quantities. Von Lüttwitz, who wrote the ultimatum McAuliffe crumpled, is demanding the surrender of a crossroads whose strategic value is becoming moot as his army's tanks run dry across the Ardennes. He is asking the 101st to yield ground he may no longer have the fuel to exploit. December 23rd. The fog lifts. C-47 transports fill the sky over Bastogne, dropping parachute bundles into the snow, ammunition primarily. The bundles drift down through German flak bursting around them. The paratroopers run across open ground to retrieve them. From the tree lines, SS Panzer crews watch from their frozen vehicles in silence. December 26th. Patton's 4th Armored Division breaks through from the southwest. The siege is broken. The 101st is given orders to attack. The 506th Parachute Infantry moves north and retakes Recogne, the Bois des Corbeaux, then Foy. The 327th Glider Infantry pushes toward Bourcy. By January 17th, the line stands exactly where it stood on December 19th, the morning the 101st arrived. Every meter of ground the Germans gained around Bastogne has been erased. The 101st returns the map to its original state and hands it back. Now the file can be assembled. June 6, 1944. A German paratrooper who jumped on Crete and fought in North Africa interrogates American prisoners in the pre-dawn hours of D-Day and writes about their mohawk haircuts and painted faces. He is not frightened. He notices. First entry. June 13th, 1944. The 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division, named for a man famous for refusing to surrender, launches its maximum effort to retake Carentan. It comes within 450 meters. It fails. Second entry. September through November, 1944. The 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen, having crushed the British 1st Airborne at Arnhem, spends 2 months attempting to cut a highway held by the 101st. The road is repaired each time it is cut. Third entry. December 22nd, 1944. A German general writes in his own post-war account that the American commander's one-word refusal was fully in accord with the stubborn tenacity his men had been experiencing for days. He is not surprised. Fourth entry. The Waffen-SS believed, as a matter of ideology and institutional certainty, in their own superiority. They were selected, trained, equipped, and indoctrinated to regard themselves as something apart from ordinary soldiers. When they wrote about the 101st in after-action reports, when they recorded their observations in post-war memoirs, when prisoners told interrogators that Bastogne had not fallen as promised, it cost them something to say it. Professional soldiers do not readily concede that another force cannot be broken. These men conceded it. In writing, with their names attached, the greatest tribute they could offer was not a compliment, it was an admission. In late April 1945, as the 101st advanced through southern Germany, the division arrived at Kaufering, a satellite camp of Dachau. The SS had evacuated the prisoners who could walk on a death march south. Those who could not walk, they burned. When the Screaming Eagles arrived on April the 28th, they found 500 dead inside the barracks. The enemy they had fought at Bastogne in the snow was also this. One kind of reckoning. The war held others. There is one more thing the SS said after fighting the 101st Airborne Division. They said it on May 6, 1945. And they said it without words. What remained of the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division, Götz von Berlichingen? Approximately 1,500 men, all that survived, Carentan and the Falaise Pocket, and Operation Cobra, and the long retreat through France and Germany, arrived at Rottasch-Egern, north of Kufstein in Bavaria. Ostendorf was already dead. Most of the officers who had led the June 13th attack were dead or captured. What remained came to a halt and surrendered. They surrendered to the United States 101st Airborne Division. Götz von Berlichingen, the Iron Fist, the medieval knight who refused to yield his besieged castle to an imperial envoy, who replied in language that Goethe later preserved for history, kann mich im Arsche lecken. Go to hell, a division that chose that refusal as its identity. That made it a name, and wore the name into combat for 11 months across France, Belgium, Holland, and Germany. Surrendering to the men commanded, at their most defining moment, by an artilleryman who was asked to surrender a besieged city and replied, "Nuts." Götz von Berlichingen, go to hell. McAuliffe. Nuts. Cambronne at Waterloo. Merde. There is a tradition running through the armies of nations that have never spoken to each other, and the men of the 17th SS understood it. They had built their identity around it. On May 6, 1945, they laid down their arms to the men who had lived it. The square in the center of Bastogne is called Place General McAuliffe, named after a man who was half asleep when the ultimatum arrived, who had to be reminded of his own words, who was an artilleryman running a siege by instinct and found the whole demand genuinely absurd. In one corner of the square stands a Sherman tank. A German 88mm shell passed through it. The hole is still there because the Belgians chose to leave it there. Not a monument to victory, exactly. A monument to a fact. The square is what's left. The tank is what's left. And a one-word reply, typed on a sheet of paper and carried out to a pair of blindfolded German officers on a cold road in Belgium, that a German corps commander received, read, and found, in the end, entirely unsurprising. He had been watching these men for days. The reply fit exactly what he had written about their tenacity. He just didn't know it would take 4 letters,